Hello and welcome again to Praxis Group International, where I teach you exactly what ETS requires of you to earn a respectable passing score on your TOEFL IBT. Hello, my name is Mr. HEARN and I am your TOEFL tutor. In this video, I'm going to teach you a few things that you need to know to master the reading section of the TOEFL IBT. Now keep in mind that there are ways that you've done things on your other tests to earn high scores. And those things have not been working on your TOEFL IBT, and there's a reason for that. You see, ETS has their way of doing things. And when you know what they want you to do, and you do things the way they want you to do it, it's easy to pass the TOEFL IBT. Now, I've heard it before. People said, Mr. Don't say it's easy. Everyone says it's easy. You know what? When you don't know how to do something, it's hard. But when you do know how to do something and you practice it a little bit to get good at it, it gets easier. Many tutors teach things that they don't really know what they're teaching. And if you ask them, why is the answer that way? They can't tell you. But I can assure you that if you ask me a question about any aspect of the TOEFL IBT, and I mean anything to do with ETS all the way back to the beginning of their history, or about any single question, I can tell you how it's designed, the psychology behind it, the structure behind it, and why you missed it, and how you feel when you take that question. I mean, I can tell you everything about it. And I'm going to tell you a few things about that now. So stay tuned. Don't just skip out. Things that I teach you are different from what other people are teaching. And that's why all of my students pass, because I'm teaching you exactly what ETS requires of you, not what I think you should do. You understand? I'm teaching you what ETS requires of you. So learn these little things. They make the big difference. And watch the video the entire way through, and watch it a couple of times, because we miss things as we go. And each time you watch this video, you're going to see something new. And be sure to comment. If there's something that I say that doesn't seem right to you, call me out on it, right? Challenge me, because I love it when you challenge me, because I respond, and then other people get to see that, oh, so that's why Mr. Hearn said that. That's how it works. Yes, yes. Do what I teach you, and you will pass your TOEFL IBT. So let's talk about the reading section. What gives you such a hard time on the reading section? It's intimidating. That's for one thing, right? We've got 3 or 4 long passages about subject that we may not be familiar with, or they're just freaking boring, right? Can't stand reading about this stuff, don't want to read about it. Or maybe it's something that we didn't do well on in school and we're a little intimidated by that subject. Regardless, doesn't matter what the subject is. In fact, the less you know about the subject, the better. You see, the big secret is, I know many tutors are teaching you to study up on your subject so you can really pass the test. That's totally ridiculous. It's wrong. It's wrong. ETS takes passages from books and they modify them, right? Because it's just a test of a study skill. It's not a test of English. This is a test of college readiness. And in college, you have to have certain study skills to get good grades. And so what these tests do for the reading section, they're testing your ability to manage your emotions, right? Pace yourself. You have to be able to look at a passage and know that you don't need to know anything about it. You have to control your emotions. You have to be able to understand what the question is asking you. You have to know, where do I find this information in the passage? And you have to use the passage, and only the passage that you have, not anything that you've learned from anywhere else, but use only the passage that they give you to eliminate wrong choices based on rules that they've established for the test. Let me say that in an easier way. The TOEFL IBT reading section has nothing to do with real life. In fact, the less you know about these subjects in real life, the better you're going to do. What ETS is doing is testing your study skills to say, hey, can you control your emotions on a test and not be overwhelmed by information that you're not familiar with? Can you understand what the questions are asking? Can you find that related information in the passage in the place that they ask you to look? And can you prove that you found that information by eliminating choices that are different from what's stated in the passage or not mentioned in the passage according to the rules that ETS has for eliminating wrong choices? That's it in a nutshell. So when it comes to the reading section, what makes it so hard? First of all, we're overwhelmed. So many passages to read, so much to read in a short time, plus 10 confusing questions. Each has 4 confusing choices, and you're just overwhelmed, right? Just like, I'll never get through this. There are things that ETS does to intimidate you throughout the test. There are things that they do to confuse you throughout the test. So if your English skills are high and you're struggling with this test and you don't know why, it's not because you don't know English, because you don't know how to take the test. But don't worry, because that's what I'm here for. I'm here to introduce you into the things that they do to trick you out of your score and out of your career, by the way, right? What do they do to trick you? Let me show you a couple of things that you may not have noticed, but once I show it to you, you're like, oh my God, that's exactly what's happened to me. I know I hear it all the time, right? So let's take a look at a couple of questions in the reading section so I can show you how ETS builds intimidation and confusion into the test. And that is likely one of the main things that's stealing your score from you. Let's take a look at the test. All of the questions you're about to see come directly from the ETS TOEFL book, Official TOEFL IBT Tests, Volume 2, 3rd edition. ETS, from the people who make the test. Oh, and by the way, if you're using TPOs or other TOEFL-like tests from perhaps Kaplan or Princeton Review or Barron's, don't. All right, just don't. Because the test changed in September of 2021, and the rules are different from all of the other tests. You can see here in the background, I've got all of my other TOEFL books. The only one that you know is valid right now is this book right here, the tests in this book, and those that you find directly on your ETS account that you can purchase for $45 to take practice tests, or they have 2, and they're very stingy. These people are very stingy. There are 2 free practice tests on the website, but don't use any other tests. Even the old TOEFL tests, don't use them because the new rules don't work on the old tests. And as the rules change, I'll be making new videos. You'll notice that my videos are new, right? You'll see that other people have 158,000 views, whatever. I have like 50 views, because when the rules change, I tell you how to do things the right way. So let's take a look at a few questions from Volume 2, right? The ETS book. So you can see what is going on. Why is this test so tricky? Not hard, it's tricky. Let me show you what they do to trick you. Take a look. All right, so here we are in one of the TOEFL IBT tests from ETS. And what we're seeing on the screen is a long question and a long paragraph. And this may seem intimidating. The first thing that goes through your mind, think about it. What do you think of? How do you feel when you see this question? Are you overwhelmed? Are you thinking, oh my goodness, I'm not going to be able to answer this question. It's going to take me forever, right? Well, let me just get to it. So you start trying to read the question, and the question is written in a confusing way so that we don't really understand what it's asking us, but we're in a big hurry. So we go to our passage and we start reading as quickly as we can and trying to find the right answer in the passage, the answer to the question. And then we look at our choices and we try to pick the choice that seems right based on what we read. And it's just so overwhelming and takes so much time, we just feel exhausted. Is that you? Is that how it makes you feel? Because it's how it makes many people feel. And this is by design. You see, the question isn't hard. And the information is only in one part of one sentence in the passage. But if you don't know that, if you try to take this test the way you've taken tests in the past, the way you've taken tests to get so successful that's brought you here, then you're going to be overwhelmed many times on this test. But let's take a look at another type of problem and see how you feel about that. Here we are at question 17. In this question, it seems a bit more direct, and the paragraph is very short. But look at the question. It says, how is paragraph 4 related to other aspects of the discussion of reflection in the passage? Now, what's going through your mind? When you first looked at this, you thought, oh, this is going to be easy. It's a short question, and the passage, the paragraph is very short. But then when you read the question, you realize, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to read the whole passage to get this question. Oh, I'll never get through this test. I'm going to have to test again. Is this what happens to you? When you look at a question where they want you to relate to the passage, you're thinking you're going to have to read the whole passage to understand it, and immediately you feel overwhelmed. Well, that's built into the test. And the truth is, you don't have to read the rest of the passage at all. At all. Remember, this is not a test of how well you can read and understand. This is a test of how well you know how to take the test. And I'll tell you something, how does this question create anxiety? Keep in mind how anxiety forms. You see, when your reality doesn't match your belief system, we fall into a state of anxiety. So you look at the question like this, you think, oh, this is going to be easy. It's a short question, short paragraph. I'll be able to answer this one quickly. And then you read it and you realize, oh my goodness, this is not as easy as I thought. Well, now your reality no longer matches your belief system, and now you're panicked. This is what is built into the test. But when you know how to deal with these things, then the test gets to be a lot easier. And that's what I teach you, okay? Stay tuned, because I'm going to teach you how to deal with these things. How do we look at the test and know I can read less, understand more, and get a higher score quickly and easily? It's possible. All of my students do it. You'll do it too. Let's take a look at a few more questions, because I want to show you how this test traps us into doing more than we should. Take a look. Question number 3 is a favorite of many of my students. And I say that with all sarcasm, because when I say favorite, it's really something that often creates a lot of anxiety or takes a long time to answer. This is the infamous highlighted sentence question. Why do I call it a highlighted sentence question? Obviously, there's a highlighted sentence in the passage, but also it says highlighted sentence in the question. By the way, this question is always worded the exact same way. It's not a question at all. It's a direction. Okay? It's telling you how to eliminate wrong choices. See, most people look at these questions, they read the highlighted sentence, they get confused by it, but they're in a big hurry. So they try to understand what it means, and then they try to pick the choice that has a similar meaning. It's very difficult to do that. In fact, if you try, it's going to take too long and be too confusing. And even as you pick your choice, you're not certain of your answer. And that causes even more anxiety, because as a professional, you really want to be sure of your answers before you move on. And if you're not certain of this answer, it's going to be on your mind. When you get to the next question, you're going to want to go back and check your answer from the last question. And because you're trying to do that, you're not really concentrating on the question that you're working on. And that separation of mind, right, is having you think about the last question. You're not able to concentrate on this question. You're nervous about passing the test, and all of that anxiety just leads to being overwhelmed. You're just like, I just want to get out of here. Just want to finish. Just want to get done with this. There's an easy way to answer these questions. ETS has very specific structures and rules for every single question type. And when you know how to look at the question, then you can easily understand what they're saying and eliminate choices that are wrong. Let me show you the rules for this question type. Okay, do you remember when I said that most people, they read the highlighted sentence and they try to understand what it means, and then they try to pick the choice that has a similar meaning because it's a highlighted sentence question after all, and they want you to pick the sentence that best expresses the essential information. Well, that's what we do, but that's not what ETS wants you to do to answer the question. You see, what they want you to do is eliminate choices that change the meaning in important ways or leave out essential information. Did you even see that before? I mean, when I talk to my students in class, most of them say that they'd never even seen that direction. They just read the sentence and try to pick the right answer. But that's not how the test works. There are no right answers on the TOEFL IBT. There's only the best choice, and that's the one that's left once you've eliminated wrong choices based on ETS's rules. Not what I think, but what ETS says is right. Like my daddy said, when it's your business, you can do it your way. Until then, you'll do as you're told. Well, the TOEFL IBT is frustrating for many people because they try to do it their way. ETS says, no, either you do it the way we want you to, or test again. So when you're doing these questions, you need to understand what is the sentence saying and look at your choices and eliminate choices that are either changing the meaning of one of the pieces or leaving something important out. Now that's tricky. You have to know how to understand the sentence. And I teach you exactly how to do that step by step. I have a video for everything in my video course that shows you step by step how to do each question on the TOEFL IBT. And I make these questions so easy. I mean, they start to become your favorite because when you have something complicated, break it into small pieces and work it one piece at a time, and it gets easy. And then it gets really easy till it's even fun. I know that sounds crazy for the TOEFL IBT, right? How can it be fun? Well, when you know what you're doing, especially when you've struggled a lot before, and all of a sudden you get this, aha, so this is how it works. And then suddenly, wow, I'm really good at this. Hey, that's fun. That's the fun part of my job, is that I get to help you go from being a very confused and frustrated person to a very competent, right? Regaining your confidence, intelligent person, and passing your stupid TOEFL IBT and getting on with your life. That's the great thing. So these questions on the reading section, they're not hard, they're tricky. But when you know the trick, you can answer the questions. Keep in mind that the TOEFL reading section is not about reading comprehension. The more you read and try to understand, the more confusing the test gets, and the more the choices either look right or they look wrong. And if you're trying to reason it out and figure out which one's right, you're never going to be able to pass. In other words, once you understand how ETS wants you to answer the questions on the test and you practice doing just what they want you to do, step by step, it gets really easy to answer the questions correctly with confidence. And you know that you're moving on. Now, there's one last thing I want to talk to you about the TOEFL IBT reading section. Take a deep breath, because this is the most important thing you need to know. You got to where you're at by being meticulous, by being right, by answering questions on your test and being sure of your answers. It doesn't work that way on the TOEFL IBT. In fact, many times you're going to answer questions, and the only way you can be certain that you've got a good shot at answering the question correctly is that you're doing it the way ETS wants you to do it. They create choices that don't make any sense. They create choices that are kind of sort of like what's in the passage, but not really, but yeah, mostly like that. And they know that you're reading to understand and trying to pick the choice that really matches the information in the passage. But it doesn't work that way on most of the questions. They might have 2 or 3 questions out of 30 or 40, if you have the experimental section, that actually are answers to the question and the choice matches what states in the passage. But most of them don't. Most of the choices don't really make sense, but they're not wrong based on ETS's rules. This is the important thing, that you're not reading for comprehension. You're reading to follow ETS's procedures and rules, and using those procedures and rules to eliminate wrong choices, picking what's left, and moving on. They also know that if there's a choice that doesn't make any sense, most people won't pick that. You'll end up picking a choice that's wrong because you don't want to pick something that you don't understand or it doesn't make sense. ETS knows that, and they build that into the test to rob you of your points, to rob you of your confidence, to rob you of your time. And as you know, when you blow the reading section at the beginning, it's all downhill from there. Forget about the listening, speaking, and writing, because if you didn't pass the reading, you didn't pass. So it's important that you know what ETS wants of you. It's important that you know that you're looking for a respectable passing score, not a perfect score. Everybody wants to get every single question right because they just have to get it right. Right? We've got to get through this test. We got to get everyone right. No, you don't. Do you know you can miss 3 questions and still score 30 on your TOEFL IBT reading section? True, right? You can miss some questions and still earn over 25 on your TOEFL IBT reading section. Your goal, if you're one of my students, which is typically pharmacists, dentists, teachers, many engineers now are coming to me, but mostly pharmacists, dentists, and teachers. So if you're in that little group there, you need a 22 or better, right? A respectable passing score. I like my students to score more than 25 on each section, right? And it's possible. When you do what ETS wants you to do, they give you a score that you deserve. And most of the time it's over 25 per section. In the speaking, you need 26. But if you have some decent English skills, even if your English isn't perfect, which ask anyone in the United States, most of them, their English isn't perfect. But if you do things the way ETS wants you to, you can easily score 27, 28, even 29 by following the rules. And you'll learn more about that when you look at the Mastering the Speaking section. All right, so I've gone on a little long. I know I'm just showing you the basics for how ETS beats you in the reading section. When I talk about mastering the reading section, I'm talking about mastering understanding how ETS builds anxiety and confusion into the test, how they trick you into reading too much, into wasting time, into reading too many of the choices and picking the wrong ones, okay? And having anxiety and just losing your mind over the whole thing. Look, if you really want to pass this test, and when you go to my video course, you'll see step-by-step videos that tell you exactly how to answer each question. And you'll also have me there to ask me any questions you want. I have a live Q&A every other weekend so that you can be there and ask me questions. You can also be in my TOEFL community and you can ask questions there. It's really the place you want to be if you have been struggling to pass your TOEFL IBT and you need to pass it now. There's no more fooling around. Stop wasting time. Go to my website, subscribe Two, I've got a lot of different options. You can subscribe to whatever option you need, and let's get to passing your TOEFL IBT. Again, if you found anything interesting in this video or things that have helped you, please subscribe, like, share, ring the bell, and I'll see you in the next video.